Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something really critical unfolding in Sri Lanka. It's all about digital privacy and the growing power of the state. We're basing our breakdown on a sharp analysis by Sampath Samarakun, who's been tracking a pretty disturbing trend in some new laws being proposed.
So let's just kick things off with a question that honestly should probably keep us all up at night in this digital age. When you send a message on an app that's supposed to be secure, do you really believe that conversation is safe from prying eyes? Well, the laws we're looking at today in Sri Lanka are putting that very idea on trial.
Okay, now this is where it gets really fascinating. You have two governments in Sri Lanka, right? Total political opposites. But they've both cooked up laws with the exact same and frankly pretty alarming goal. On the surface, they're bitter rivals, but on this one issue, their proposals are practically carbon copies. And the author of our source material argues this tells us something much, much deeper about state power itself.
And look, this isn't just a weird coincidence or some policy overlap. The analysis we're looking at suggests that this reveals a consistent, deep-seated impulse inside the state, and it doesn't really matter which political party is holding the reins.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. First, you had the previous government, the Wickremesinghe administration, with their Anti-Terrorism Act, or ATA. The key part was Clause 65. Now you have the current government, the Dissanayake administration, with their proposed protection of the state from Terrorism Bill, or PSTA. And guess what? Its Clause 55 is, for all intents and purposes, exactly the same.
So what's the big deal with these clauses? What are they actually trying to do? Well, they both take aim at a piece of technology that has become totally fundamental to how we protect our privacy online.
The target here is something called End-to-End Encryption. You've definitely heard of it, even if you don't know the name. It's the tech that keeps your messages on apps like WhatsApp or Signal private. The best way to think about it is like a digital seal on an envelope. Only the person you send it to has the key to open it. Nobody in the middle, not the company, not a hacker, and definitely not the government is supposed to be able to peek inside.
And that right there, that's the core threat. The whole point of both the ACTA and PSTA bills is to legally force the creation of a master key, a key that would give the state the power to break that digital seal and unlock any private conversation it wants whenever it feels like it.
So let's be crystal clear about this, and the source really hammers this home. This is not some accident. It's not a loophole or a poorly written bit of law. It's the whole point. The explicit, shared goal of both of these efforts is to systematically tear down the privacy protections that we've all come to rely on. Which, of course, brings us to the big question: why? Why would any government want this kind of power? The official reason is always about security, but what's the real cost to a democracy? Well, the official reason, and you can probably guess this one, is preventing terrorism. But the analysis by Sampath Samarakun argues that the real motivation is a lot more political. It's not just about keeping people safe, it's about keeping the government in power by crushing any form of dissent.
And we're not talking about some abstract theoretical problem here. The consequences would be very, very real. It would mean that any citizen's private chats could be monitored by the state. For journalists, protecting a confidential source will become next to impossible. Any kind of political criticism could be stamped out, creating a massive chilling effect on free speech. The author doesn't mince words. He calls it a fatal attack on democracy itself.
You know, this whole push for more surveillance power, it's not just a Sri Lankan issue. It's part of a much bigger and kind of scary global trend that the author of our source material calls digital dictatorship.
So, digital dictatorship, what does that actually mean? Well, to put it simply, it's when governments flip the script. They take all the powerful tools of the 21st century, mass surveillance, AI, data analysis, you name it, and instead of using them to serve the people, they use them to watch, control, and suppress them.
And you know what? There's a pretty clear playbook for how this happens. First, you justify it, right? You talk about national security and terrorism threats. Then, you legislate. You pass these super broad laws that give the state huge new surveillance powers. And from there, it's just a short hop to monitoring everyone and ultimately controlling what people can say and do.
But let's bring it back to Sri Lanka, because according to the author, what's happening there is a huge political betrayal. It's a case of some pretty deep hypocrisy. I mean, think about it. The current government got elected on a powerful promise of systemic change. When they were in the opposition, they were the ones shouting from the rooftops about how bad these kinds of repressive laws were. And now that they're in charge, they're the ones pushing them.
And the analysis just lays it out there, pretty bluntly. This whole situation is proof that all those campaign promises and fiery speeches, they're not worth much when a party actually gets its hands on the levers of state power. it seems like the urge to hold on to that power just takes over.
So, what's the big takeaway here? According to the source, it's this. This isn't about one person or one political party. The author argues that this proves that even when you change the faces of the leaders, the fundamental nature of the regime, its instinct to watch and control, hasn't changed one bit.
And that leaves us with a really tough question to chew on. When a government claims it needs a master key to every citizen's private digital life, all in the name of security, you have to stop and ask, who or what is really being protected here? Is it the people, or is it the power of the state itself?